She warned, "Stay away from me." But her eyes said something else. Part 1. The cargo bay of Station Apex 7 smelled like metal and recycled air. Jae-hun wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished loading the last container onto the transport platform. 3 years he'd been working here, and the work never got easier. But he didn't mind. It was honest work, and after everything that happened back on Earth, honest work felt good. He walked through the station's main corridor toward the common area. It was the end of his shift, and his stomach was growling. The station was massive, home to thousands of beings from dozens of different species. Humans were still new here, only 50 years since first contact, and most aliens still looked at them like they were bombs waiting to explode. Ji-hoon understood it, sort of. Humans had a reputation. They felt things too much, too strongly. They cried, they laughed, they got angry over small things. Other species found it disturbing, unpredictable, dangerous. The common area was crowded. A group of tall, blue-skinned Keltorians stood near the food dispensers. Some small, furry Fibbits chattered in the corner. And there, sitting alone at a table near the window, was someone Ji-hoon had never seen before. She was Vexari. He could tell by the way her skin shimmered with faint patterns of light, and by the delicate antennae that rose from her head. The Vexari were insectoid, but looked almost human in shape. Almost. Her eyes were different, made up of hundreds of tiny facets that caught the light. Her hands had 4 fingers instead of 5. Her skin was pale green, smooth like glass. She was hunched over a data tablet, and even from across the room, Ji-hoon could see her frustration. The device was flickering, clearly malfunctioning. She tapped it, shook it, tapped it again. Nothing worked. Ji-hoon grabbed his food and started walking toward an empty table. But something made him stop. Maybe it was the way her shoulders slumped in defeat. Maybe it was just who he was. His mother always said he couldn't walk past someone who needed help. He changed direction and walked toward her table. She noticed him when he was still 3 meters away. Her antennae stiffened. Her whole body went rigid. Those strange, faceted eyes locked onto him, and Ji-hoon saw something flash across her face. Fear. "Hey," he said, keeping his voice gentle. "I noticed your tablet's giving you trouble. I'm pretty good with tech. Want me to take a look?" For a moment, she didn't move. Then she stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. The sound made several nearby aliens turn to look. "Stay away from me," she said. Her voice came through a translator device on her collar, making it sound flat and emotionless. But her body language said everything. She took 3 steps backward. "Your kind is dangerous." Ji-hoon stopped. He raised his hands, palms out, showing he meant no harm. "Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you." "I am not scared," she said quickly. Too quickly. "I am being cautious. The Vexari do not interact with humans. It is forbidden." "I understand," Ji-hoon said. And he did. He'd heard about the Vexari. They were telepathic, sensitive to emotions. Human emotions apparently felt like screaming sirens to them. Overwhelming. Painful, even. "I'll leave you alone." He turned to walk away, but something made him glance back, just for a second. She was watching him, and in those strange, multifaceted eyes, he saw something that didn't match her words. It wasn't hatred, it wasn't disgust, it was curiosity. And something else, something that looked almost like longing. Ji-hoon sat down at a different table and ate his meal. But he couldn't stop thinking about her, about the way she'd said dangerous, like it was a word she'd been taught to say, not something she actually believed. When he finished eating, he walked past her table on his way out. She was still struggling with the tablet, her antennae drooping now in what he guessed was frustration or sadness. He didn't stop. He didn't speak to her. Instead, he went to a nearby terminal and left a message in the public help channel, keyed to her table's location. "If you ever need help from a dangerous human," he typed. "I'm in Cargo Bay 7, Shift B. Ask for Ji-hoon." Then he left. Back in his quarters, Ji-hoon's roommate Hyun-woo was sprawled on the couch, watching some Earth drama on his tablet. "Hey," Hyun-woo said without looking up. "How was work?" "Same as always," Ji-hoon replied. He didn't mention the Vexari woman. Hyun-woo would just make jokes. "Did you hear?" Hyun-woo sat up. "They're talking about restricting human movement on the station again. Some delegate from the Keltorian Empire said we're emotionally volatile and pose a security risk." Ji-hoon sighed. "Yeah, I heard." "It's bullshit," Hyun-woo said. "We've been here 3 years. 3 years. And we've never caused a single problem. But they still treat us like we're going to snap and start a war or something." "Can you blame them?" Ji-hoon asked. He sat down on his bunk. "Think about it from their perspective. Most species out here, they're calm, logical. They don't feel things the way we do. Then humans show up, crying at movies, laughing at stupid jokes, getting angry about injustice. To them, we must seem insane." "So what?" Hyun-woo said. "Since when is feeling things a crime?" Ji-hoon didn't have an answer for that. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the Vexari woman, about the way she'd backed away from him like he was radioactive, but also about that look in her eyes, that curiosity. He wondered what it was like to be telepathic, to feel other people's emotions like they were your own. It sounded exhausting. Maybe that's why the Vexari avoided humans, not because they hated them, but because they couldn't handle the intensity. The next day at work, Ji-hoon kept expecting to hear something. A complaint filed against him for harassment, maybe, or a warning from his supervisor. But nothing came. 3 days passed, then 5, then a week. He started to forget about it. Almost. 2 weeks after their encounter, Ji-hoon was finishing his shift when an announcement blared through the station speakers. "Emergency in Cargo Bay 3, decompression warning. All personnel evacuate immediately." Ji-hoon's training kicked in. He wasn't in Bay 3, but he was close. He grabbed an emergency kit and ran toward the area. Other workers were running away from it. That's when he saw the kid. It wasn't a human child. It was Vexari, small. Maybe the equivalent of 6 or 7 years old. The kid was frozen in the corridor, antennae flat against its head in terror. Behind it, Ji-hoon could see the bay doors straining against the pressure differential. "Hey!" Ji-hoon shouted. "This way! Run!" The child didn't move. Too scared. Ji-hoon didn't think. He just ran. He scooped the child up in his arms and sprinted back down the corridor. Behind him, he heard the horrible shriek of metal tearing. The bay doors were failing. He threw himself and the child around the corner just as the emergency bulkhead slammed down, sealing off the compromised section. They were safe. The Vexari child was shaking in his arms, making a high-pitched keening sound. Ji-hoon set the kid down gently. "You're okay," he said. "You're safe now." Other workers arrived. A Vexari adult rushed forward and grabbed the child, pulling it away from Ji-hoon. The adult didn't say thank you. Didn't even look at him. They just took the child and left. Ji-hoon stood there, breathing hard, his hands shaking from adrenaline. That night, alone in his quarters, his personal terminal chimed. He had a message, encrypted, anonymous. He opened it. "Why did you risk yourself for a species that rejects you?" Ji-hoon stared at the message for a long time. He didn't know who sent it, but somehow he knew. He could feel it. He typed his reply. "Because it was right, and because I believe anyone can change their mind about us if given the chance." He hit send, and then he waited. 3 days later, another message arrived. "Meet me. Observation Deck 7, late cycle. Come alone." Ji-hoon's heart started beating faster. He deleted the message, and then he memorized the time and place. She warned, "Stay away from me," but her eyes said something else. Part 2. Mirai sat in her workstation, staring at the security footage for the 15th time. She'd already written her report on the decompression incident in Cargo Bay 3. The investigation was closed. There was no reason to keep watching this particular clip. But she couldn't stop. On the screen, the human male named Jihoon ran toward danger instead of away from it. He grabbed the Vexari child without hesitation. No pause, no calculation, just action. Mirai's antennae twitched. Every time she watched this moment, she felt something strange happening inside her chest. The Vexari didn't have strong emotions like other species. They were calm, logical, controlled. That's what made them superior, her teachers always said. Emotions were weakness. Emotions were chaos. But watching this human save a child, Mirai felt something that wasn't calm or logical. It was warm and tight and confusing. She'd been taught that humans were dangerous. Their emotions radiated from them like heat from a star. When a Vexari got too close to a human, they could feel everything the human felt. Joy, sadness, anger, fear, all at once. It was overwhelming, like standing in a storm. That's why the law existed. No Vexari should interact with humans. It was for their own protection. But if humans were so dangerous, why did this one risk his life for a child that wasn't even his species? Mirai closed the video file. She opened another folder, one she kept hidden behind 3 layers of encryption. Inside were files she'd been collecting for months. Articles about Earth, human psychology studies, cultural records, music files, art galleries. She'd been studying them in secret. It started as academic curiosity. Mirai was a data analyst. She analyzed things. That's what she did, and humans were new to the galaxy, which made them interesting from a research perspective. That's what she told herself, but it was more than that. She knew it was more than that. The terminal chimed. Mirai jumped, quickly closing the hidden folder. A message appeared on her screen from Taevan, her assigned culture guardian. "Report to my office immediately." Mirai's antennae flattened against her head. Culture guardians were assigned to every Vexari living away from the home world. Their job was to make sure Vexari citizens followed the cultural protocols, especially the ones about avoiding other species' emotional contamination. She stood up and walked to Taevan's office on the upper level. The door slid open before she could knock. "Come in, Mirai," Taevan said. He was older, his skin patterns dimmer than hers. He'd been a guardian for 20 cycles. "Sit." She sat. Taevan folded his 4-fingered hands on his desk. "I've been reviewing your activity logs. You've been accessing files related to human culture extensively." Mirai's hearts, both of them, started beating faster. "I'm a data analyst. Research is part of my job." "Research on station systems, yes. Research on cargo schedules, trade routes, security protocols, yes." Taevan leaned forward. "Research on human emotional development and artistic expression? That's not part of your job." "Mirai?" She didn't know what to say. "I'm not reporting this," Taevan said. "Not yet. But I'm warning you. This curiosity is dangerous. Humans are dangerous. Their emotions are like poison to our people. You start feeling what they feel, and you stop being Vexari. You become something else, something broken." "I understand," Mirai said quietly. "Do you?" Taevan's antennae stiffened. "Because I saw the security footage too. I saw you watching that human in the common area 2 weeks ago. I saw you watching him save the child. And I can see it in your patterns, Mirai. You're curious. And curiosity is how it starts." Mirai stood up. "I'll delete the files." "Good." Taevan waved her away. "You're young. I understand the attraction of new things. But remember what you are. Remember what we are. We are Vexari. We are above the chaos of emotion." Mirai left the office, but she didn't delete the files. Instead, that night, she did something foolish. something that could get her exiled from her people. She sent the human a message. His reply came 3 days later, and it was so simple, so honest, that Mirai read it 10 times. Because it was right, and because I believe anyone can change their mind about us if given the chance. Because it was right. The Vexari didn't think in terms of right and wrong, they thought in terms of logical and illogical, efficient and inefficient, but humans used words like right to describe actions that didn't benefit them at all. They did things because they believed they should, not because they gained anything from it. It was strange. It was fascinating. Mirai spent the next week in turmoil. She did her work, filed her reports, attended her cultural meditation sessions. But inside, she was changing. She could feel it. Every time she saw a human walking through the station corridors, she felt that strange warmth in her chest. Every time she analyzed security footage and saw humans laughing together, helping each other, even arguing with each other, she felt something her teachers said she shouldn't be able to feel. She felt envious. The Vexari never laughed like that. They never touched each other with such casual affection. They never raised their voices in passion. They were calm, always calm. And Mirai was starting to realize that calm wasn't the same as happy. She made her decision on the 8th day. She sent the message, "Meet me, Observation Deck 7, late cycle. Come alone." Then she sat on her bunk and shook with fear. Not fear of the human, fear of herself, fear of what she was about to do. Observation Deck 7 was in the abandoned section of the station. It had been damaged in a meteor strike years ago and never fully repaired. No one went there anymore, which made it perfect. Mirai arrived first. The deck was dark except for the massive viewport that looked out into space. A nebula spread across the view, purple and blue and breathtaking. She stood in the darkness and waited. When the door opened, she almost ran. Her every instinct screamed at her to leave, but she forced herself to stay still. The human walked in, Ji-hoon. He stopped when he saw her, giving her space. "It's you," he said softly. "I thought it might be." Mirai's translator converted his words, but it couldn't convert the tone, the gentleness in his voice. That was something she felt directly without translation, and it made her antennae tremble. "Stay away from me," she said. The words came out automatically, trained into her since childhood, but then she added something true. "Please. I don't know what you're doing to me." Ji-hoon didn't move closer. He leaned against the wall several meters away. "What am I doing?" "I can feel you," Mirai said. "Even from here, your emotions, they're so loud, like thunder inside my head. How do you live like this? How do you function when you feel everything so strongly?" Ji-hoon thought about that. "I guess we don't know any different. This is just how we are. Is it really that bad? What you feel from me right now?" Mirai focused on him, on the emotional resonance that radiated from his presence. She sorted through it carefully, the way she would analyze data. Curiosity, strong curiosity. He wanted to understand her. Warmth, a general sense of kindness directed outward. Nervousness. He was nervous about this meeting, and underneath it all, something else, something that felt like hope. "It's not bad," she admitted. "It's overwhelming, but not bad." "Then why do your people avoid us?" Ji-hoon asked. Mirai looked out at the nebula. "Because it's addictive. That's what they don't tell us. They say human emotions are painful, dangerous. But that's not the whole truth. The truth is that your emotions are beautiful, vivid, real. And when we feel them, we want more. We want to feel alive the way you feel alive." She turned back to him. "My people are afraid that if we spend too much time around humans, we'll stop wanting to be Vexari. We'll want to be like you instead." "And that scares them," Ji-hoon said. "Yes." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Ji-hoon spoke again. "Can I tell you something? About emotions?" Mirai nodded. "Emotions are scary. Even for us. I've been so angry I wanted to hurt people. I've been so sad I couldn't get out of bed. I've been so afraid I couldn't breathe. Ji-hoon pushed off from the wall but didn't come closer. But I've also felt joy that made me understand why people write songs. I felt love that made me braver than I knew I could be. I felt hope even when logic said there was no reason to hope. He looked directly at her. Maybe your people are right to be afraid. Because emotions do change you. They make you vulnerable. But they also make you strong. They make life worth living. Mirai felt something crack inside her chest, like ice breaking. I shouldn't be here, she whispered. No, Ji-hoon agreed. You probably shouldn't. If my people find out, they'll take me home. They'll put me through psychological cleansing. I'll forget all of this. Then why did you come? Mirai looked at him with all her faceted eyes. Because I had to know. I had to know if what I feel when I study your people is real or just data. I had to know if you're really as fascinating as you seem. And? Ji-hoon asked. Am I? Before Mirai could answer, the station alarms blared to life. Red emergency lights flooded the observation deck. A voice came over the speakers. All personnel to emergency stations. Pirate vessels detected. This is not a drill. Ji-hoon and Mirai looked at each other, and then they ran. She warned, "Stay away from me," but her eyes said something else. Part 3. The station shook. Mirai grabbed the wall to steady herself as another impact rattled through the structure. Emergency lights cast everything in red. The alarms were so loud she could barely think. This way, Ji-hoon shouted over the noise. He was running toward the emergency stations, not away from danger. Of course he was. That seemed to be what humans did. Mirai followed him. What choice did she have? They reached the emergency command center in the central hub. It was chaos. Dozens of species crowded around monitors, shouting in different languages. A Keltorian commander was barking orders. Station security personnel rushed past carrying weapons. Pirates hit the trading convoy in Sector 9, someone said. 3 ships. They're trying to breach the station's docking ports. Ji-hoon pushed his way to a console. I can help. I used to be military. A tired-looking human administrator, a woman named Somin, glanced at him. Cargo bay specialist? Yes, ma'am. But I served in the Earth Defense Force before this. Engineering and tactical. Somin nodded. We need all hands. Take Station 7. Monitor the eastern docking clamps. Ji-hoon sat down and immediately started working. His hands moved across the controls with practiced efficiency. Mirai stood behind him, unsure what to do. She was a data analyst, not a soldier. Mirai, Ji-hoon said without looking away from his screen, I need you to access the station's sensor network. Can you do that from here? Yes. But the pirates are using some kind of jamming signal. I need you to find its source and pattern. If we can predict their jamming pulses, we can time our communications between them. Mirai understood immediately. She moved to the console next to his and logged in. Her fingers flew across the interface. Data streamed across her screen, numbers and patterns that most beings would find meaningless. But to her, they told a story. The jamming is coming from the lead pirate ship, she said. It pulses every 3.7 seconds. There's a gap of 0.4 seconds between pulses. That's our window, Ji-hoon said. He relayed the information to Somin, who passed it to the communications team. For the next hour, Mirai and Ji-hoon worked together. She analyzed data, he implemented solutions. She found patterns, he turned them into actions. It was like they were 2 parts of the same system, and Mirai felt something she'd never experienced before. Not just curiosity, not just fascination. This was connection, real connection. Every time Ji-hoon asked her a question, he listened to her answer, really listened. He didn't dismiss her input or question her analysis. He trusted her. And she realized This was what humans did with each other. They built these connections, these partnerships based on trust and mutual respect. It wasn't just about efficiency, it was about working together because they chose to, not because protocol demanded it. "I've got something," Ji-hoon said suddenly. "The pirates are trying to override docking clamp 7. If they succeed, they'll breach the station." "How long until they override it?" Salmon asked from across the room. 2 minutes. Maybe less. "Can we stop it remotely?" "No. Someone has to go to the clamp physically and engage the manual locks." Salmon cursed. "That section is exposed. If they breach while someone's there, I'll go," Ji-hoon said. He was already standing up. "It's too dangerous," Salmon said. "It's the only option." Ji-hoon looked at Mirai. "Keep feeding tactical data to the defense team. They need to know where the pirates are focusing their attack." Mirai felt panic rise in her chest. Her chest, not just her mind. She was feeling emotion directly now, not just sensing it from him. "You can't go. You'll die." "Maybe. But if I don't go, the pirates breach the station, and a lot more people die." Ji-hoon smiled at her, actually smiled, in a moment like this. "Besides, I told you, sometimes humans do things because they're right, not because they're safe." He turned to leave. Mirai made a decision. "Wait. Take me with you." "What? No. I can access the station's systems faster than you. If something goes wrong, if the manual locks fail, I can override from a secondary terminal." It was true. But it was also an excuse. The real reason was simple. She couldn't let him go alone. Ji-hoon looked like he wanted to argue, but another explosion rocked the station. "Fine, but stay close to me." They ran through the corridors together. The station was evacuating this section. They passed families running in the opposite direction, carrying children and clutching emergency packs. Ji-hoon helped an elderly Keltorian who had fallen, getting them back on their feet and pointed toward safety. Even now, even rushing toward danger, he stopped to help. They reached docking clamp 7. It was a massive mechanical system designed to hold ships in place. The chamber was huge, cold, and exposed to space on one side by a force field. Through the field, Mirai could see the pirate ship approaching. Ji-hoon ran to the manual control panel. "I need to engage 3 locks. It'll take about 30 seconds. Watch my back." Mirai moved to the secondary terminal. She pulled up the system diagnostics and started running code to reinforce the locks. Her hands were shaking. Why were her hands shaking? Vexari didn't shake. They didn't feel fear like this. But she did. She felt it fully, because she was standing next to a human who felt fear and courage at the same time, and his emotions were bleeding into her, or maybe she was finally feeling her own emotions for the first time. The pirate ship was closer now. Mirai could see weapons charging on its hull. "First lock engaged," Ji-hoon called out. The ship fired. The shot hit the force field and the whole chamber lit up blue. The field held, but barely. Cracks appeared in its surface. "Ji-hoon, they're going to fire again. The field won't hold." "Second lock engaged. One more." The pirate ship's weapons charged again. Mirai watched in horror as the energy built up. They were going to fire. Ji-hoon would be exposed. The blast would... She didn't think. She just moved. Mirai ran across the chamber and grabbed Ji-hoon's hand. The moment their skin touched, everything changed. Mirai was Vexari. She was telepathic, but she'd never touched a human before. She'd never made direct physical contact with a being that felt emotions this strongly. It was like diving into an ocean. She felt everything. Every thought, every feeling, every memory and hope and fear that lived inside Ji-hoon. It all flooded into her mind in an instant. She felt his determination to save the station, his fear that he wouldn't be fast enough, his worry for the people evacuating, his concern for her, for bringing her into danger, and underneath it all, she felt something else, something warm and strong and directed at her specifically. He cared about her. This human who barely knew her cared whether she lived or died, not because of protocol or duty, but because he'd chosen to care. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was too much. But through their connection, Mireille could also share information directly. Without words, without translation, she showed him the system data she'd been analyzing. She showed him a faster way to engage the third lock. Ji-hoon understood instantly. His hand moved on the control panel, following the path she'd shown him. "Third lock engaged!" The pirate ship fired. The force field shattered, but the docking clamp held. The massive locks Ji-hoon had engaged kept the clamp sealed tight. The pirate ship couldn't breach. Its weapons fire couldn't penetrate the reinforced hull. Mireille and Ji-hoon stood together, still holding hands, as emergency bulkheads slammed down around them, sealing the chamber from the rest of the station. They were trapped, but they were alive. Ji-hoon looked down at their joined hands, then up at her face. "Are you okay?" "I don't know," Mireille said honestly. "I can still feel you. Everything you feel. It's so much. I'm sorry." "Don't be." Mireille tightened her grip on his hand. "Don't be sorry." They heard voices outside the bulkhead. Station security was coming to get them out. They'd be rescued soon. But Mireille knew the real danger was just beginning. Because somewhere on this station, Taven was watching. He was seeing everything through security footage. He was seeing her holding hands with a human, seeing her working alongside him, seeing her make the choice to follow him into danger. The secret was out. When the bulkhead finally opened, station security found them standing together in the chamber. They'd let go of each other's hands by then, but it was too late. Everyone had seen. 2 guards stepped forward. They were Vexari, sent by the Culture Guardian. "Mireille," one of them said, "you need to come with us." Ji-hoon stepped between them. "She just helped save the station." "That's not our concern. She's violated cultural protocols. She must answer to the Guardian." Mireille put her hand on Ji-hoon's shoulder, stopping him from arguing further. Through that touch, she felt his anger, his desire to protect her. But she also felt his helplessness. He couldn't fight her own people for her. "It's okay," she told him. "I knew this would happen. Mira, I don't regret it." She looked at him with all her faceted eyes, letting him see the truth. "I don't regret any of it." The guards escorted her away. Ji-hoon watched her go, and inside him, Mireille had felt something break, something that felt like his heart. She understood now. She understood what humans meant when they talked about heartbreak, because she felt it too. Her own heart was breaking, and she was glad. Because it meant she had a heart to break. It meant she was finally, truly alive. She warned, "Stay away from me." But her eyes said something else. Part 4. They kept Mireille in the Vexari section of the station. It wasn't a cell exactly, more like a meditation room. Bare walls, soft light. Nothing to distract her from thinking about what she'd done. Taven visited her on the second day. "They're coming for you," he said without greeting. "The Council of Elders. They've been notified, and they're sending a transport. You'll be taken back to the home world for psychological cleansing." Mireille had been expecting this. She sat calmly, her antennae relaxed. "When?" 3 days. Taven sat across from her. "Mireille, I tried to warn you. I tried to protect you from this." "I know." "Then why?" "Why would you throw everything away for a human, for a species that will never be allowed to us?" Mireille thought about how to answer. "Have you ever felt joy, Taven?" He frowned. "That's a human concept." "No, it's not. Joy is real. I felt it. When Ji-hoon and I worked together during the attack, when we saved the station, I felt something so strong and bright that I finally understood why humans write music and create art. They're trying to capture that feeling, that moment of pure joy." "That wasn't joy," Taven said. "That was emotional contamination. The humans' feelings infected you." "Then I want to stay infected." Mireille met his eyes. I've spent my whole life being told that emotions are weakness, that feeling is chaos. But I've watched humans, Tyvin. I've studied them, and yes, they feel pain. They feel sadness and anger and fear, but they also feel love and hope and joy. And they don't just survive those feelings. They thrive because of them. You sound like one of them already. Maybe I do. Mirai stood up. Tell me something honestly. Are you happy? In all your cycles of life, following every protocol, keeping every rule, are you happy? Taven looked away. Happiness is not the goal. Order is the goal. Stability. Survival. But what's the point of surviving if you're not really living? Taven left without answering. Meanwhile, Jihoon was fighting his own battle. He stormed into Administrator Soman's office without knocking. You have to do something. They're taking Mirai away for helping save the station. How is that right? Soman looked tired. She'd been handling the aftermath of the pirate attack, plus dealing with angry delegates from a dozen species. I know it's not right, but it's their law, Jihoon. I can't interfere with Vexari cultural protocols. Even when those protocols are wrong? Especially then. Soman gestured for him to sit. He didn't. She sighed. Look, I understand how you feel, but humanity is still new here. We're barely tolerated by most of the consortium species. If we start interfering with other cultures' laws, we'll give them the excuse they've been looking for to ban us from the station entirely. So we just let them take her, brainwash her, make her forget everything? Unless you can convince the Vexari Council to change their minds. Soman shrugged helplessly. Which is impossible. Jihoon left her office angrier than he'd arrived. He found Hyunwoo in the human quarters and told him everything. That's messed up, Hyunwoo said. She helped save the station and they're punishing her for it? It's worse than that. They're punishing her for working with me, for feeling something real. Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up. Come on. Where are we going? To talk to people. If the administration won't help, maybe we can make them help. Over the next 2 days, Hyunwoo organized something Jihoon didn't expect. He gathered testimonies. He talked to every being who'd been in the emergency command center during the attack. He collected statements from people who'd been saved because of Mirai and Jihoon's cooperation. A Keltorian engineer testified that their coordination prevented a hull breach. A Fibit medic said their quick thinking saved the medical bay from being evacuated. Even some Vexari workers, quietly and anonymously, admitted that Mirai's analysis had been crucial. Hyunwoo compiled everything into a data file and submitted it to the Consortium Council. It won't change anything, Jihoon said. They don't care about facts. This is about fear. They're afraid of what humans make them feel. Maybe, but at least we tried. On the 3rd day, the Vexari transport arrived. Mirai was brought to the station's central forum. This was where important decisions were made, where treaties were signed. It was a massive open space surrounded by viewing platforms where representatives from every species could observe. Today, hundreds of beings filled those platforms. Word had spread about what was happening. This wasn't just about one Vexari female anymore. It was about whether different species could work together at all. The Council of Elders appeared via hologram, their images projected at 3 times normal size. There were 5 of them, ancient Vexari whose skin patterns had faded to almost nothing. The eldest spoke. Mirai, daughter of the Vexari, you have been charged with violating cultural protocols. You made physical contact with a human. You exposed yourself to emotional contamination. You risked your psychological integrity for a species that is not your own. Mirai stood in the center of the forum. She looked small and alone. Do you deny these charges? The elder asked. No, Mirai said clearly. I don't deny them. Then you understand that you must return home for cleansing. Your memories of these events will be suppressed. Your emotional responses will be recalibrated. You will be made whole again. I am whole now, Mirai said. More whole than I've ever been. The elder's antenna stiffened in disapproval. The contamination has progressed further than we thought. This makes the cleansing even more necessary. It's not contamination. Mirai's voice grew stronger. It's growth. I felt things I never knew were possible. I connected with another being in a way our people have forgotten how to do. And yes, it was overwhelming. Yes, it was scary. But it was also beautiful. Emotion is chaos, the elder said. We have built our civilization on logic and order. We will not allow human influence to destroy that. Ji-hoon pushed his way to the front of the crowd. Then you're cowards. Every being in the forum turned to look at him. Somin, standing near the back, looked like she wanted to drag him away, but she didn't. You call yourselves logical, Ji-hoon said, his voice carrying across the space. But you're not making a logical decision. You're making a decision based on fear. You're afraid of emotions because you've never learned how to handle them. Human, you have no right to speak in this proceeding, the elder said coldly. I have every right. This is about me too. Ji-hoon walked toward the center of the forum. Security guards moved to stop him, but Somin signaled them to stand down. Mirai saved lives during the pirate attack. She worked with me, yes, but that cooperation saved this station, and you're punishing her for it. We are protecting her. From what? From feeling? From connecting with someone? Ji-hoon stopped a few meters from Mirai. You say emotions make beings weak, but I've seen Mirai face her fear. I've seen her risk everything to do what's right. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen. The elders were silent for a moment. Then the eldest spoke again. The human does not understand our ways. No, said a new voice. Maybe it's we who don't understand. Everyone turned. Taven stepped forward from the viewing platform. He walked down to the forum floor. Guardian Taven, the elder said, you were assigned to prevent this exact situation. I was. And I failed. Taven stood between Ji-hoon and the council's holograms. But in failing, I learned something. I watched Mirai change. I watched her become more than what she was. And I realized that we've been teaching our people the wrong lesson. His antennae were trembling, but he continued. We tell our young that emotions are chaos. That feeling is weakness. But humans feel everything, every moment of every day. And they've built a civilization anyway. They've created art and music and literature. They've loved and lost and loved again. They're not weaker for it. They're stronger. You too have been contaminated, the elder said. Then maybe contamination is just another word for growth, Taven replied. The forum erupted in noise. Beings from different species started shouting, some in support, some in opposition. The elders tried to restore order, but the chaos had begun. Somin made her decision. She stepped forward and activated her communication device, amplifying her voice over the crowd. Council of Elders, I invoke the ancient right of trial by testimony. The noise stopped. The elders looked shocked. That right has not been used in 300 cycles, the eldest said. But it still exists in consortium law, Somin said. Any being accused of violating cultural protocols can request testimony from their peers. If enough beings testify to their character and actions, the council must reconsider their judgment. This is highly irregular. It's also legal. Somin looked around the forum. I have collected testimonies from 47 beings of 12 different species. All of them wish to speak on Mirai's behalf. Will the council hear them, or will you deny her this right? The elders consulted with each other, their images flickering. Finally, the eldest spoke. We will hear the testimonies, but this will not change our judgment. The law is clear. Then let's find out, Soman said. For the next 3 hours, beings came forward one by one. They told stories of how Mirai's analysis had saved them, how her cooperation with Ji-hoon had prevented disaster, how her courage had inspired them. A Keltorian engineer spoke about efficiency and coordination. A Fibit medic spoke about compassion and dedication. Even some Vexari workers, risking their own status, spoke about Mirai's brilliance and kindness. And then Ji-hoon spoke. He told them about finding Mirai struggling with her tablet, about her warning him to stay away, about the curiosity he'd seen in her eyes despite her fear. She told me her people believe humans are dangerous, Ji-hoon said. And maybe we are. But not in the way you think. We're dangerous because we feel, and feelings are contagious. When you're around someone who loves deeply, you want to love deeply too. When you're around someone who hopes despite everything, you start to hope too. He looked at Mirai. She's not contaminated. She's awake. And if you take that away from her, if you make her forget how to feel, you won't be protecting her. You'll be killing who she's become. The forum was silent when he finished. The elders deliberated. Their holograms flickered and faded as they discussed in private. When they returned, the eldest's expression was unreadable. We have heard the testimonies. We acknowledge that Mirai's actions during the crisis were valuable. However, the law remains the law. Emotional contamination cannot be— Wait, said another elder, the second youngest. I wish to speak. This was unusual. The elders always spoke with one voice. Disagreement was not shown publicly. I have been listening to these testimonies, the younger elder said, and I find myself experiencing something I have not felt in many cycles. I feel doubt. The eldest elder's antennae stiffened. Doubt is not logical. No, but perhaps that is the point. The younger elder looked at Mirai. Perhaps we have been so afraid of chaos that we have chosen stagnation instead. Perhaps growth requires risk. The elders conferred again. When they returned this time, their decision was different. The council is divided, the eldest said. This has not happened in living memory. Therefore, we defer to the Consortium Council for judgment. Soman nodded. The Consortium Council will deliberate and deliver a verdict within 3 standard days. The forum was dismissed, but as Mirai was led away, she looked back at Ji-hoon one last time, and he saw hope in her eyes, hope that maybe, just maybe, the impossible could happen. She warned, "Stay away from me," but her eyes said something else. Part 5. The 3 days of waiting felt like 3 years. Ji-hoon couldn't sleep. He kept replaying everything in his mind, every word spoken at the trial, every testimony. He kept wondering if it would be enough. Hyunwoo tried to keep his spirits up. They heard us. That's what matters. We got people to listen. But will they change anything? Ji-hoon stared out the window of their quarters at the stars beyond. Or will they just take her anyway? I don't know, man. But at least we tried. At least we showed them that humans don't give up on people we care about. Ji-hoon realized something then. Hyunwoo was right. Win or lose, they'd shown the galaxy something important. They'd shown that humans would fight for what they believed in, not with weapons, but with words and truth and stubborn hope. Maybe that was the real point. Maybe that was what made humanity dangerous. On the 3rd day, everyone was summoned back to the central forum. The viewing platforms were even more crowded than before. Word had spread across the entire station. Beings from dozens of species wanted to see how this would end. The Consortium Council appeared via hologram. It was made up of representatives from the 12 founding species of the Consortium, the Keltorians, the Fibits, the Vexari, and 9 others. The council speaker was a Keltorian named Vorath. His blue skin looked almost purple in the holographic light. We have reviewed all testimonies and evidence regarding the case of Mirai, daughter of the Vexari. This is our judgment." The forum fell silent. Ji-hoon could hear his own heartbeat. The Vexari claim that contact with humans causes emotional contamination. They argue that this contamination is harmful and must be prevented. The human witnesses argue that emotional connection is natural and beneficial. These positions appear irreconcilable. Vorath paused. However, we find that both positions miss the essential question. The question is not whether emotions are good or bad. The question is whether an individual has the right to choose for themselves. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Mirai chose to help during the crisis. She chose to work with Ji-hoon. She chose to experience emotions that her culture forbids. These were her choices, made freely and with full knowledge of the consequences. Vorath's voice grew stronger. The consortium was founded on the principle that different species can coexist while maintaining their unique cultures. But coexistence requires respect, and respect means acknowledging that individuals, not cultures, have the final say over their own lives. The Vexari elders' holograms flickered with agitation. "You cannot make this decision. Cultural protocols are internal matters." "We are not changing your protocols," Vorath said. "We are ruling on whether one individual can be forced to follow them against her will, and our ruling is this: Mirai has the right to choose." The forum exploded with noise. Shouts of approval and protest mixed together. Ji-hoon felt his legs go weak with relief. "However," Vorath continued, and the noise died down again, "this creates a problem. If Mirai chooses to remain here, she will be in violation of Vexari law. She will be exiled from her people. She will never be able to return to the homeworld. Is this truly what you want, Mirai?" Mirai stood in the center of the forum. Her antennae were steady, her skin patterns bright and clear. "Yes, I choose to stay." "You understand what you are giving up? Your family, your home, your entire culture." "I understand." Mirai looked at the Vexari elders. "I love my people. I always will. But I cannot go back to pretending that feeling is weakness. I cannot unlearn what I have learned. If staying true to myself means exile, then I choose exile." One of the Vexari elders stepped forward. It was the younger one who had expressed doubt at the previous hearing. "Then I choose it too." Every being in the forum gasped. A Vexari elder choosing exile? "I have spent 200 cycles enforcing protocols I no longer believe in," the elder said. "I have told our people that emotions are chaos. But I have watched this young female show more courage in 3 days than I have shown in 2 centuries. If she can choose truth over comfort, then so can I." The eldest elder looked horrified. "You would betray your people?" "No. I would honor them by helping them grow." The younger elder's hologram stepped beside Mirai's position symbolically. "Exile me if you must, but know that I stand with her." Taven stepped forward as well. "As do I." The eldest elder's antennae drooped. "This is a disaster. Our people will fracture." "Or they will evolve," Taven said quietly. Vorath cleared his throat. "The Consortium Council rules in favor of Mirai's right to choose. She is granted asylum on Station Apex 7. Furthermore, we recommend the establishment of a cultural exchange program between humans and any Vexari who wish to participate. This program will be voluntary for both sides." "You are interfering with our culture," the eldest elder protested. "We are offering your people a choice," Vorath corrected. "Nothing more. Those who wish to maintain traditional protocols may do so. Those who wish to explore emotional connection may do that instead. The consortium believes that diversity within species is as important as diversity between them." The ruling was final. The holograms disappeared. For a moment, the forum was silent. Then, slowly, beings began to applaud. Not all of them. The Vexarii representatives looked stunned, but the Keltorians clapped their large hands together. The Fibbits made their chirping approval sounds, and the humans cheered. Ji-hun pushed through the crowd toward Mireille. When he reached her, he stopped, suddenly uncertain. "Are you okay?" Mireille looked at him with her faceted eyes. "I don't know. I've just lost everything I've ever known. My family won't speak to me. My people consider me a traitor. I have no home." Ji-hun's heart sank. "I'm sorry. If I had known—" "Don't be." Mireille reached out and took his hand. "I also gained something. I gained the freedom to choose. I gained the ability to feel. And I gained a friend who was willing to fight for me even when he had nothing to gain." Through their touch, Ji-hun felt what she felt. Sadness for what she'd lost. Fear of the unknown future. But also something stronger. Hope, joy, gratitude, and something else. Something that felt warm and deep and permanent. Hyunwoo appeared beside them, grinning. "So, what now?" "Now?" Salmon walked up, looking tired but satisfied. "Now we figure out how to make this cultural exchange program work. Mireille, would you be willing to help coordinate it?" "You want me to help?" Mireille looked surprised. "You're the perfect person for it. You understand both sides. You've experienced both the fear of emotions and the reality of them. Plus, you're brilliant with data analysis. We need someone who can track the program's progress and help us learn from it." Mireille's antennae brightened. "Yes, I would like that." Over the next weeks, something remarkable happened. 3 more Vexari requested to join the cultural exchange program. Then 7, then 20. Not everyone, not even a majority, but enough to show that Mireille wasn't alone in her curiosity. They started small. Vexari volunteers would spend supervised time with human volunteers, learning about emotions in a controlled way. The humans learned to be gentler, to moderate their emotional expression so they didn't overwhelm their new friends. The Vexari learned that feelings didn't have to control you, that you could experience emotion and still make rational choices. Ji-hun volunteered to be one of the human guides. Of course he did. He watched in amazement as Vexari, who had spent their whole lives calm and controlled, started to laugh, started to cry, started to express anger and joy and sadness and hope. They were terrified at first, but they kept coming back. "It's like learning to swim," one Vexari explained. "At first you think you'll drown, but then you realize you can float. And once you can float, you want to see how far you can go." Taven became one of the most enthusiastic participants. "I wasted so much time being afraid," he told Ji-hun one day. "I could have been living." "You're living now," Ji-hun said. "That's what matters." The program attracted attention from other species, too. The Keltorians requested information about human emotional resilience training. The Fibbits wanted to study human art and music. Even species that had been suspicious of humans started to show curiosity. Humans weren't just new to the galaxy anymore. They were becoming teachers. 6 months after the trial, Ji-hun and Mireille stood on Observation Deck 7. The same place where they'd first really met. The same place where everything had changed. The nebula outside the viewport still glowed purple and blue. "I've been thinking," Mireille said, "about what you told me that first night, about emotions being scary, but also making life worth living." "Yeah? I used to think my people were right, that emotions were chaos, that feeling too much would destroy me." She turned to look at him. "But I was wrong. Emotions didn't destroy me, they saved me. They showed me that I was only half alive before." Ji-hun smiled. "And now? Now I'm whole. For the first time in my life, I'm completely, fully alive." She took his hand. "Thank you for not giving up on me, for fighting for me even when it seemed impossible. You fought for yourself, Ji-hoon said. I just stood beside you while you did. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Can I ask you something? Mirai said eventually. Anything. That day in the common area when I told you to stay away from me. Why did you leave your contact information? You must have known I would just delete it. Ji-hoon laughed. I did know, but I also know something about humans that you've learned since then. What's that? We hope even when logic says we shouldn't. We reach out even when we might be rejected. We believe in the impossible. He squeezed her hand gently. Because sometimes, just sometimes, the impossible happens. Mirai's antennae glowed softly. I'm glad you're dangerous. What? You humans. You're dangerous. Not because you're violent or unstable. You're dangerous because you make others want to be like you. You make them want to feel, to hope, to love. You make them want to be brave. She looked at him. That's terrifying, and it's wonderful. Ji-hoon pulled her close, careful and gentle. Mirai rested her head against his shoulder, still getting used to physical affection but learning to love it. So what do we do now? She asked. We live, Ji-hoon said simply. We feel everything, the good and the bad. We make mistakes and learn from them. We hope and sometimes get disappointed. We connect with people and sometimes lose them. We do all the messy, complicated, beautiful things that make life worth living. That sounds chaotic. It is. Good, Mirai said. I've had enough of order. Outside the viewport, a new ship arrived at the station. It was marked with both human and Vexari symbols, the first joint vessel created by both species working together. It was just the beginning. The galaxy was changing, and humanity, with all their dangerous emotions and impossible hope, was helping to change it. Not through force, not through conquest, but through connection. Through showing others that the things that make you vulnerable are the same things that make you strong. Through proving that love is braver than fear. Through being exactly what they were, messy, emotional, hopeful, stubborn, and absolutely refusing to give up on each other. Humanity. Fuck yeah. Mirai smiled as she watched the ship dock. Her smile was still new, still uncertain, but it was real, and it was hers. I love you, she said suddenly. The words came out clumsy, unpracticed. She'd learned what they meant only recently. Is that correct? Is that how humans say it? Ji-hoon felt his throat tighten with emotion. Yeah. That's exactly how we say it. Good. Then I love you, and I'm not afraid to say it anymore. I love you too, Ji-hoon said, and I'm not afraid either. They stood together, two beings from different worlds, watching the future unfold. A future where different species could connect despite their differences, where fear could be overcome by courage, where one person's choice to feel could change an entire culture, where humanity proved that their greatest strength wasn't technology or weapons or even intelligence. It was their stubborn, foolish, beautiful refusal to stop feeling, to stop hoping, to stop believing that tomorrow could be better than today. That was the human gift to the galaxy. And the galaxy was finally learning to accept it. Mirai had warned him to stay away. Her words had said he was dangerous. But her eyes had said something else. They had said, "Save me." And he had, not from danger, but from a life only half lived. And in saving her, he'd helped save countless others who were ready to feel, ready to hope, ready to truly live. That's what humans did best. They reached out to the ones who warned them away. They connected with the ones who feared connection. They loved the ones who thought love was impossible, and they changed the galaxy, one heart at a time.